Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin', fantasy champs? Ah. That was a little eccentric. My bets, none of them paid off.
Super Bowl bets?
Yeah, it's kind of a bad.
Yeah, I'm mad I didn't do enough.
I should
those random ones, like the coin toss one and like the Gatorade bath. What color the Gatorade would be?
Purple.
Was it purple?
It was purple.
Oh, I would have lost that one.
Yeah, there you go.
I always go with yellow.
I tried to predict the first person they showed during the national anthem, first quarterback, and I predicted Patrick Mahomes, and it was Jalen Hurts. So,
wow.
I feel like that's illegal. Like that the producer could sit there and just choose.
He probably does.
Oh, this is what people are betting? I'm gonna frick them all.
Boom.
Smash it.
Let me get the plus 400 on Jalen Hurts and then do it myself.
Yeah, just unbelievable. But anyway, you got to become friends with that guy and figure it out. But my name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. Hopefully you enjoyed that that great game outside of the end. That was called the Super Bowl. It was an interesting night, fun stuff. Rick came down from his made a long venture, skipped all. Oh, I shouldn't say that on the pod in case he tells teachers to listen, but.
Yeah, I did what?
Nothing. You didn't.
I didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, how was the Super Bowl? Did you enjoy it? Do you think it was good?
Yeah, I think it was. Considering I hated both teams, we at least got a good game out of it.
Yeah.
It did stink that I had zero rooting interest. I think you were in the same boat.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least it was a good game.
Yeah. I actually thought for the most part, for like I would say 2.5 quarters, the Eagles outplayed the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But Chiefs made some adjustments. There were defense. Honestly, I thought if the Eagles were going to lose the game, it was going to be because the offense puked. I did not think it was going to be because the defense puked.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The offense had trouble with 2 drives at the start of the second half, but like when they needed to, they scored. Jalen Hurts was awesome. Like they played well offensively.
They put up 35 points.
Yeah, they played very good offensively. So, and they, without that one fumble, I mean, they should have been up like 7 or, I don't even know. But they should have been up by something at the end of that game. It should have been a 3-point lead, a 7-point lead, or whatever before the Chiefs, took the lead with the field goal. But that fumble really screwed them. So I guess that was the biggest mistake in the whole game. But Jalen Hurts didn't turtle. That fumble happened, and they drive right down the field, score a touchdown. So he responded to it. Great game for them. Really, it was the 2 best teams in the NFL, and it came down to the team with more experience.
Yep.
I think that was why. If you were to do an exact rematch next year, I think the Eagles win.
I think that's fair. I mean, the problem is the Eagles they might lose some guys.
Yeah.
There's rumors about Jason Kelce retiring. They don't have a lot of cap space.
Imagine that.
So
you play the same sport as your brother and you lose to him.
Yeah, that's devastating. But I agree. I think experience was the big thing. Obviously, the Chiefs did have Patrick Mahomes, so best quarterback. I usually tend to bet on the teams with the best quarterbacks.
I hate that.
But yeah, I mean the Eagles. I think, and I said this before the game too. The Eagles are the best team in the league roster wise. I think they had the best team, but the Chiefs just the experience. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid's game plan, especially in the second half, I think were the differences in the game.
Question: should Patrick Mahomes' performance in that game, dealing with the ankle injury and all that stuff, should that be on par with Jordan's performance with 102 degree? Yeah, because that's what everyone's saying.
No,
I was thinking about it, and I'm like, you remember that game that Jordan has, and people talk about it to this day. the 102-degree fever, all of that stuff. And I felt like last night after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl that this was going to be a game that Chiefs fans might remember it and be like, oh, you remember he had that ankle injury?
Yeah, I don't think that's...
Like, I don't think...
I mean, he had like 180 yards passing.
I know. When you remember the Chiefs Super Bowl, like, you're not going to remember that.
Anything against Mahomes. Like, you take into the fact that he had the injury and he won Super Bowl MVP.
People are putting that in his legacy and all that stuff.
No, I don't think it is.
I don't think it should be. Even though he played good. He played good. Didn't make any mistakes, which is good. 180 yards passing.
Yep.
It's different way of winning, I guess.
That's how they've been playing all year, though.
So boring.
A lot of short yardage plays, but I mean, sometimes that's the way you got to do it. Like that, I was telling you before the show, like the 2018 Patriots. That's how they played. They did a lot of. They ran the ball up the middle, play action, short passes, and that's how they won games. And scored points.
They scored 24 points. No. Yes. Offensively.
Patriots?
No, Eagles. Oh my God.
The Chiefs?
The Chiefs. I'm trying to remember.
I think they scored 31. They only got one defensive touchdown because the other one got called back.
Oh, it was 38. Okay. But anyway. Yeah, so it was a good game. The only thing that I wanted to actually hit on that was talked about the most is the holding call at the end of the game.
Yeah. That was a bad call.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people defending it. I mean, especially in the media. I think even
was it the right call by the letter of the law? Yes.
Yes.
Was it the right call in the moment of the Super Bowl when you had been letting all of the other players do exactly what they in that? Like, if you wanted to call it in the game, that's fine. If you weren't calling it and you called it in the third quarter.
Yeah, but on a third down, that
to decide the game.
If the Chiefs get that call, which they did, the game's over.
Yeah, and like they threw the flag, and it's like, no, you hold on to the flag, you let the game play out. I understand that he was holding. I understand that he admitted he was holding, but it's not about the fact that he was holding. It's about the fact it's about the severity of which he was holding the guy, and it's about the fact that it's about the moment, the severity of which he was holding the guy, and should you throw a flag in that moment for something that wasn't egregious? Like if he grabbed Juju on that route and physically stopped him from moving.
Yeah, and Juju was couldn't move. He was running in place.
And that's a whole other situation. Yeah. But Juju got off him. He just touched his back for a second, and it's a holding call, yes, in the regular season. But right now in the Super Bowl,
even in the playoffs, but in that moment where it decides the Super Bowl, you gotta you only in a play like that, you can only call something that is blatant. And I don't think that was blatant.
Yeah, and this is the second time in the Chiefs' last two games that a call, not saying that the one where they hit Mahomes was questionable, but a call has set the Chiefs up for a game-winning field goal.
Yep.
And that is sketch to me.
Well, they would have had the field goal on this play anyway, but there would have been more time on the clock.
Yes. And I think if you got based on the way the Eagles offense was playing,
yeah, they could have went down the field and tied it. Absolutely.
I think they get in the field goal range at least and take some shots at the end zone. So, it was very bad call. 3 days ago, Patrick Mahomes. 3 days ago, Roger Goodell came out and basically stated, state of refereeing. The refs
have never been better.
Never been better. We've just watched two games now where you bagged it for the Chiefs. What are we doing? And then at the end of the game, you see, Roger Goodell yucking it up with his new dynasty and all that stuff. And he's hugging Chris Jones and flirting with him and kissing Patrick Mahomes on the cheek and, cringy stuff, dude. I'm not saying it's fixed, but it was snatched and bagged, my friends.
The
Eagles pooped on themselves in the second half.
But
if they held together, they would have won.
This has come from Patriots fans, so
No, but I mean, just taking that aspect out of it, you can't make calls like that in huge games.
No, I agree. At the end of the day, I agree.
That hit out of bounds. Should the Bengals player Osai should he have shoved Patrick Mahomes when his foot touched the white? No, but when you watch the play, you can tell that he's like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And then he touched him. And then Mahomes did what he's smart. Flop. Make it look good. And he flopped his brains out, and the refs were like, that's my quarterback. Threw the flag. So. But
you saying they were wearing a Chiefs jersey?
A little bit. But like, on the other side of the coin, in that Bengals game we talked about, the Bengals had 2 chances to score a touchdown. They had 2 chances to go down the field and win the game. I didn't do it. It's on them, not on the refs. Eagles played a great game. Couldn't stop the Chiefs for anything at the end of that game. Andy Reid was pulling the bag out, the play call back. Like, everyone's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes was so good. And I'm like, 2 of his touchdowns were to guys dead in the flat, wide open. Walk-in touchdown. That's scheme. That's not Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
that's
it was scheme. And then Tony one, I think, was also.
Mac Jones could have stood back there and thrown 180 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game.
I don't know about all that. He could have thrown those touchdowns for sure.
Yeah, so that's 2 out of 3.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. There was nothing in that game. Like, if you're really looking back at it, there was no play in that game that Mahomes made where I was like,
no, that was groundbreaking. But he did what he had to do though, and they moved the ball.
Like, there were some.
You have any Brady games that were like that too?
Yeah, that's true. No,
where Brady didn't do anything crazy, but he got those 3rd down conversions. They moved the ball the entire game.
I didn't know this either though. In 2001, guess who had a high ankle sprain and played in the Super Bowl?
Was it TB12?
Could have been. Greatest of all time.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we're a fantasy football podcast. Now that we're 10 minutes in. 12 minutes. I'm glad you're listening.
Well, we knew this would be a Super Bowl.
I know. I was going to do it after the intro sequence, but now we're mid-show, and I'm telling you to follow us. So, do this as a mid-show advertisement. But anyway, today we're going to talk about consistency from the season. We're starting a series that's going to last the next 2 weeks about consistent players from the season. We're going to talk about the most consistent guys. I would say we'll talk about 5 to 10 guys at each position on each episode. Consistency is a key in fantasy football to unlocking, at least regular season wins. You need those big dogs, score a lot of fantasy points.
Them dogs.
The guys that win leagues and go off at random moments. Like, those guys are important, increasingly important. Usually Mike Williams has been a part of that conversation where 1 week he'll have 25 and the next week he has 0. But like, having your base roster be filled with guys who are really, really consistent is super key, because that is going to win you a lot of regular season games. And then I always say, so in fantasy football, things get wacky in the postseason. So it's like, you got to get to the dance. It doesn't matter if you're 7-7 or 14 or 13 or 14-0. It doesn't really matter. Once you get to the playoffs, all bets are off. You can lose at any time. So having consistent players to at least get you into the dance is important. And I think that's the whole point of this series, is to show you the most consistent guys from this year. And talk about if it translates into next year and stuff like that. So, make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Before we do that, check out our website, fantasygems.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and other podcasting platforms, please leave a review. Share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below any questions you may have for us. All right. Let's talk. Let's chat. Let's talk about some fantasy football. We are officially.
Yeah.
I didn't even talk about this because you talked about the Super Bowl, complaining about the refs. The offseason's here.
It is. It's the offseason.
Free agency.
We only have 200 plus days until the NFL regular season.
Stop. We have 1 month.
We only have 2 seasons.
1 month until
spring and summer.
1 month until gosh.
And we're not even in spring yet. We're still in winter. So it's really like 2 in month.
I was excited to say we have 1 month till free agency, but you killed the vibe. What is it? Combine is coming up next couple weeks, I believe.
Yep.
And then we have free agency coming up in a month. And then a month and a half from that, we have the NFL draft at the end of April. And then from there on, it's it's a grind.
It's grind.
Get ready for your fantasy drafts in August, and really, I do like the summer. Used to be a chunkier guy. Lost a bunch of weight, and the summertime for fat guys, it's tough because it gets hot. You're trying to wear clothes that cover that up. The only thing that does is a hoodie. And you can't wear a hoodie in friggin' 100-degree weather, so you just gotta let it fly. Show everything. And then you're not really comfortable going to beaches, all that stuff. I lost a bunch of weight. So now the summertime's great, and I'm cold all the time, and I just want to be warm. And, I like the summer, but I kind of just want to fast forward to the fall so we can watch football. It's that movie with the remote that controls your life. Click? Is that what that was called?
Is that oh my gosh, dude, that's a throwback.
Yeah, dude. Anyway, making myself aged, like singing every single Rihanna song last night.
Dude, I forgot how many bangers she had. I didn't even know I liked Rihanna as much as I did. I know. Me too. I didn't even know. I was what the heck?
Rick was on the way home last night. 3-hour drive, and he was just
pumping Rihanna. I should have. I was listening to post-game stuff from ESPN instead of listening to Booger.
That's smart. Oh, cheapers, creepers. Why'd you waste your life there, dude? You could have gone.
Well, they also got Chris Boomer. They had Mahomes, they had Kelsey, and they had Andy Reid on individual interviews.
Yeah, NFL Network does a great job with.
I should have done NFL Network. Yeah, did they have Rich Eisen?
Of course they had Rich Eisen.
I should have probably done it.
But anyway, I will say before we jump into the consistency stuff, I'm extremely sad the season's over, and it was a good season. I thought the play of the NFL was not great, but fantasy football was fun as always, and I can't wait to jump into. I enjoy parts of the off season. It's good to when the season ends, you get to reflect, you get to take a break for a little bit because everything's just football for
we get to take a little bit of a break, but then it goes right back into a free agency in the draft. But then there's another kind of break from June to the end of August, really.
If you don't have the best team,
and it's just training camp stuff.
If you don't have the best team in basketball, you don't have anything to watch.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, all right, let's talk about some consistent quarterbacks because that's what we're talking about with the quarterbacks today. Thursday will be about wide receivers, and each show should now be 25 minutes long to 30 minutes long. I don't know about this one because we talked about the Super Bowl, but because there is nothing else to talk about, we should be on this. Right, Rick? Right? No?
Sure.
All right. All right. So let's chat about some quarterbacks here. You have your notes in front of you. You're all boiled up with the article. Yeah. All right. Here we go. So we're going to talk about some guys, and essentially it's kind of ranked into 4 categories, or 3 categories, I should say. You have bad performances, you have quality performances, and then you have great performances. And then typically what I like to do is mix together quality and great and hold those together.
Yeah.
But to give you just kind of an overview, a poor performance for a quarterback is 15 or less points. A quality or good performance for a quarterback is 15 to 23 points. A great performance for a quarterback is 23 or more points. And then quality and great together would be 15 or more. So I like to say that my quarterback gets 20. I feel good.
Yeah, I feel like 15 is a little low. Although, 4-point touchdown. I would say probably 17 or 18 would be a better measurement, but we'll go with 15 for now.
15 is fine. So we'll talk about some different guys. I'll mix together quality or great, so that would be 15 or more fantasy points a game, and we'll hit on the great because I think that is super duper important. But sometimes you get some surprises. You get some surprises in here. So just looking at,
I already see one that I'm like, of course.
Let's take a look at the top. We'll say 10 guys here. So Josh Allen finished as number 1. He had 10 great performances, 5 quality performances. He only busted twice on the season where he got 15 or less points. So he was basically quality or great 88% of the time. He was fantastic. I probably should sort these by percentages if I could, but I can't.
You can't. I tried.
I was like, what are you doing? Hold on a second.
That's right. I already ranked them in my head by percentages.
Oh, okay. All right.
Based on percentage.
So yeah, 88% of the time Josh Allen was good. Was he QB? Patrick Mahomes was QB1 on these seasons.
Mahomes was QB1, yep.
Okay.
Allen was the QB3. He was also the QB3 in terms of the quality and great percentage. So that actually the top 3 followed. I think the top 4 actually followed in order. So it kind of gives you a good indicator.
I have a question real quick. Last season, Christian McCaffrey missed a bunch of time, right?
Yes.
Okay, so these numbers are right. I just wanted to confirm I was in the right year.
Like last season, like 2021?
Yeah, I was like, is this 2021?
Yeah, no. 2021, he missed a large percentage. But this year he played.
Okay, yeah, I typically put this in a spreadsheet so I can organize it, and I didn't. So that hurts my brain. But anyway, Josh Allen had 88% quality or great performances. So, I mean, there's no real, conversation here with Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, the top guys are
the top guys.
Who would expect.
Right. It is interesting to look at, certain situations. Like, we'll get to Mahomes in a second. And we'll get to Jalen Hurts in a second and stuff like that. Seeing guys that finished really, really high. Joe Burrow is an interesting one for me that I'm looking at right now. But, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, the top 3 quarterbacks in fantasy football all had 10 great performances. Jalen Hurts actually had a higher percentage of great performances with 67%.
Yeah.
He did. I don't remember how many games he missed. I think
he missed. I want to say 2
games. In the season. So because of that, he wasn't able to get the same numbers. I actually think he probably would have finished as QB1 if he had played that. But Mahomes and Hurts they were at the top with 94, 93% quality or great performance, a 15-point or more. And Josh Allen is basically third. So those 3 guys. I mean, do you anticipate any kind of change?
I don't know. I think those are probably your top 3. I mean, one of those guys might fall out next year just because somebody might move in. And it doesn't mean they have a bad season. Like Mahomes has had a couple QB4 seasons. I could see Hurts or Allen having a QB4, QB5 season. But those 3 guys are, I think, guaranteed to at least be top 5 every year, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think they're, obviously we know this, but the larger trend is rushing. Josh Allen rushes, Jalen Hurts rushes, Patrick Mahomes just throws a lot of touchdowns.
Mahomes is just
Mahomes. I actually think if I had to choose one, and we are gonna do in the next coming weeks. In the next coming weeks we're gonna do. What am I trying to say? What is my brain?
I don't know.
I told you my brain is on. In the next coming weeks, we're going to talk about our top 10 at each position. So we're going to do some rankings. But I would say for me right now, Jalen Hurts for 2021, I would put at 1, Josh Allen 2, and Patrick Mahomes 3.
For 2021. You're 2 full years off now.
For 2023.
You have
my
Hurts 1, you said?
Hurts 1.
Okay.
Josh Allen 2, Patrick Mahomes 3.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that.
So I'm not going to rank Patrick Mahomes 1.
Yeah.
If they get a weapon for him, maybe I have to at that point, but we'll see. Yeah. I don't think his play style and the way he plays the game, I don't know that he can repeat a QB1 performance like a Josh Allen could or a Jalen Hurts could. Because they have their rushing. So anyway, those are the top 3 guys. Any surprises here for you?
Well, so the top 3 is not a surprise for me. I think some more notables. You mentioned Burrow. Feels like he was the clear number 4 guy this year. I don't know if I'd rank him number 4 because we got guys like Fields coming up. I guess it would just be Fields. So Burrow feels like he'd be 5-ish to me, but still really consistent. Somebody who had a great year, and I think I kind of undervalued this offseason because he doesn't really rush. But when you have Chase, you have Higgins, and just the way he plays, it doesn't really matter that you He doesn't really rush because he's going to throw for 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns. But yeah, the notable one for me that I looked at, who's fifth in percentage?
Who?
It was Geno Smith.
Ooh.
Geno Smith. How gross that is.
Yikes,
he was
dude.
the fifth most consistent quarterback in fantasy football this year. And part of me is like, oh, that's a good indicator, but at the same time, it's Geno Smith. But some other guys like Dak and Lamar were consistent when they were on the field. Both those guys missed some time, but it shows that they're still good fantasy quarterbacks when they're out there, even though they kind of had disappointing years. And then Herbert, too, kind of just shows how disappointing of a year he had with only 59%. He had a lot of games where he did not play up to standard. So it's going to be that's a guy I'm really interested to see where he ends up getting drafted this upcoming year. Because if he falls out of like the top 8, top 10, he's going to be somebody on a lot of my teams. But if he stays in like that 5 to 6 range, probably staying out.
Yeah. I think, was that for Geno?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm like, okay. I was just confirming you were talking about Geno and not
Geno. Geno's 5, and I mentioned how like.
I got.
It's a good indicator, but it's Geno.
I wanted to confirm that it was Geno Smith before I jumped into Geno Smith. I think for Geno, to echo kind of what Rick was saying, obviously quality, great performances was 15 points or more was at 76%, but he had 10 of those games which were between 15 and 20 fantasy points, and only 3 games where he was a big performer. So Geno's not winning you weeks. He's just giving you enough fantasy points so that you don't lose them, if that makes sense. Whereas if you have a guy like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts,
that is true. Yeah,
you're getting monster performances.
I mean, even Tua had more 23-point games than Geno, so that's
right.
And Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff,
right? So there's a lot of guys that had bigger performances than Geno, but Geno was just more consistent with those weekly performances. It depends on what you want to.
I mean, if you had a loaded running back and receiver and tight end and great flexes, then Geno would be a pretty good spot for there because he's not going to suck.
Right.
Exactly. You're at least getting like 15 to 20 points.
And I like for my quarterbacks, especially if you're looking for stream, how often does a quarterback win you a week, and stuff like that, especially if you're in a 4-point touchdown league. If you're a 6-point touchdown league, I think having a top quarterback is very, very important. You can't kind of mess around with that. But if you have a 4-point touchdown league, having a guy like Geno who consistently comes out on a week-to-week basis and just puts up, at 17, 18, 19, 20 points, that's good because you're not getting screwed with the bust games. Geno did have 4 bust games, which, Joe Burrow had 3 and Geno Smith had 4. So it was 24% of the time he was not having a good performance. But I think he's okay. I for next year, very concerned about Geno Smith. I think he's honestly, I hate to say this because he had a great year this year and stuff I think he's a fraud.
Now, I don't disagree with you necessarily, but he is in a great situation. So he might not really fall off with the Seahawks. He's got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Kenneth Walker still. The offensive line is a work in progress, but it's gotten better. Mm-hmm. It's better than what it was when Russ was there. So, he's got some pieces on the Seahawks.
Yeah. Okay. And I did want to mention Burrow because Rick threw his name out there. So he had 7 great performances, and then he also had 7 quality performances. So I thought that was interesting. So he was, 82% of the time he had a quality or great performance, but he didn't have the Hurts, Mahomes, Allen at 10. He didn't have. He is a tier below those guys, right? So that was an interesting metric. I don't know that Burrow can, and this is where we would kind of do that. I would say Josh Allen, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts tier. That's tier 1. Yeah, and then Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. And Fields. Some of those guys, Fields would fall into that conversation. Now, Fields' numbers are really interesting too because he sucked for the first half of the season. Yeah. So I don't. Trevor Lawrence, they have similar
Fields is at 67%, and Trevor Lawrence is at 65% in terms of their quality and great games.
Yep.
But they both started slow. They picked up second half of the year.
Yeah. So, like, Justin Fields finished as top 5 in fantasy points.
Yeah.
He had 67% of the time he was having a quality or great performance, which is 10. But Joe Burrow had 7 on the season, and he was one of the top quarterbacks, and everyone's in love with him. Justin Fields, half the season he sucked until the second half when he started to come on, and he had 6 great performances. He also had
4 with 30 plus, I think.
He was a dog. That guy was winning me weeks when I had him. So he's actually one of those guys that I'm not he could, if he has success next year, they get him a good wide receiver, they improve that offensive line, and things start to go in a positive direction for Chicago a little bit.
Yeah.
He is a guy that I look at that could ascend into, you saw last year in 2021 fantasy football, we talked about Jalen Hurts. You ended up,
100%.
He's going to be a breakout. He's going to be this great quarterback. He finished in the top 5 or 6 with his rushing and all that stuff. And then this year took the next step. Justin Fields, I think, is going to be that same type of quarterback where I think he's a better passer than Jalen Hurts is. And I think he's a better rusher than Jalen Hurts is.
He has more potential.
He has way more potential in both areas. Watching Jalen Hurts run yesterday, it was interesting. Fields
is different man. He's different.
He might be the best rushing quarterback in the NFL with his skill set. Some of the stuff he did was absolutely absurd. And so Fields is going to be one of those guys that I think could be in that tier 1. But I have to see him do it this year to be in
quickly. I'll just ask you the question then. Even though we're 8 months away from this,
yes.
Draft day comes. Burrow or Justin Fields?
Justin Fields.
So you're gonna have him as QB4
then? Probably, yeah.
Me too.
Probably.
But
I actually probably would take. So I just ranked my top 3. Don't want to spoil the show because maybe it'll change in the next couple of weeks. But Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, and then Joe Burrow.
You have Herbert ahead of Burrow.
Yeah.
Really?
I do.
Frick, dude. That sucks. I'm trying to get him, below the top 8 or so I can get him.
ECR might push him down. I do think that he dealt with a lot of crap this year.
Really though, Burrow had a great nothing's going to change.
I don't think he might lose T. Higgins.
Well, that would change the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but the other thing is, and I didn't even factor that in, but I just think Joe Burrow is fantasy-wise capped.
And you're the Joe Burrow guy, though.
I love Joe Burrow, but fantasy-wise, he's capped. I love Mac Jones. Does that mean I'm drafting him in fantasy? No. I don't draft guys I like. I draft guys that will win me leagues.
I think he's capped too, but he's still great.
He was
still what, QB4 or 5 this year?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if that's his ceiling, you're still getting a top 5 guy who's consistent on a weekly basis. Herbert does have a higher ceiling though. He was QB2 last year.
What was he this year?
I don't even think he was top 10.
Yeah, so he had just to give his numbers, he busted 41% of the time. And then, he had 15 and 23 fantasy points, about 41% of the time. So he had 10 quality or great games on the season, which is good for him. 60% of the time. It's just there was a lot of games that he lost you know what I mean? Where it was you had him as a quarterback and he got under, he'd get 12 points and you got screwed. So, But he also was dealing with a crap load of injuries on his team and all of that stuff. So I still like Herbert. It might change, but he's talented. He's really good. If his boys are on the field, Keenan Allen, I think, is going to be a cap casualty. So
now it's also going to be is Kellen Moore a good OC?
Yeah. Yep.
We're going to find out.
We'll find out. Dak is a fraud. Dak Prescott is okay for a quarterback. He edges you just in the top 10. He's a worse version of Burrow. He's a worse version of Burrow. He had 7 quality games, but only 2 great games. So he wasn't winning you anything in terms
of
Mr.
15 to 23.
I would rather have Geno.
Let's not get crazy.
If we were just going off this year's numbers, I'd rather have Geno.
Oh, well, this year, yeah.
But no, so he's not great. He did miss some time, so maybe that would have changed a little bit. But Dak is just not Like he's worse than Joe Burrow fantasy wise, and I don't know that he can. I don't know that like Burrow. I think he's capped, but I still think he can have top 5 quarterback seasons in terms of fantasy football. Dak Prescott, I don't know, can reach the top 5.
I agree. I don't think Dak's getting top 5
Like
seasons.
he might be 8, 9, or 10.
Unless if Dak had, like if the Cowboys went out and got T. Higgins and you go T. Higgins and CeeDee Lamb,
yep.
I could see maybe he's sneaking into the top 5, but he would have to get another like superstar receiver. I feel like to put him over the edge. Where they are right now, he's not a top 5.
No, I agree. And then so I did want to hit on Lamar too. 6 quality performances, 3 great performances. This is now a trend with Lamar Jackson. I like obviously he's been dealing with injuries and stuff like that, but he hasn't been wonderful for fantasy. The last couple years, he's kind of been disappointing in a lot of ways. He did have 75% of his games were quality or great with 9 because he only played 12 games, 11, 12
something
games?
like that. And he got off to a great start, but
yeah, I mean you had him after I traded him after that.
Yeah, and he was getting like 16, 17 point
It's funny how we talk about Lamar Jackson falling off, but he had the same amount of quality or great performances percentage-wise as Geno. So,
yeah.
There's that. But I mean, are you concerned? I just talked about my basically my top 5 or 6. Where's Lamar rank in the pantheon of quarterbacks at this point?
Well, he's good because the Ravens are rumored to pretend. I mean, we don't know if Lamar's even going to be on the Ravens, what that situation is going to look like, if they're going to add a receiver, if they're going to run it back with the same team. They don't even have an offensive coordinator right now either. I don't know. Like that whole situation is just we don't know where that's going right now. But for me, he's probably after he's in that Burrow Fields tier. I don't know where I'd rank him though.
Yeah, that's going to be a confusing one. I'm curious because I think there's expert consensus for 2023 already, and right now the experts have Lamar Jackson 5th. So I'm very interested. They have him ahead of Justin Fields. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I would put him. Probably 6 or 7. But
yeah,
like how many years in a row? This could be actually for fantasy. Just talking about this in a more broad. I keep saying for fantasy, like we're not on a fantasy football podcast, but for a more broad spectrum, like Lamar could be one hell of an ad.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I like that,
especially if they add a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And he stays on the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he goes to a new team, who the hell knows?
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, and then did you hit on Trevor Lawrence?
I did. I briefly talked about him. He kind of was like Fields. He started off very slow.
Yeah. I
think the first 5 weeks of the season, he had 1 or 2 good games.
Yeah.
But then after that, he took off. So he's only at 65%. But I think he was probably closer to that 75% range if you take out the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And he had a couple great games. He had 5, which was more than Tua. It was more than Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same level as which is surprising, but Kirk Cousins. And it was only 1 behind Fields. So he had a really good year. I think he's probably in the next tier after the Fields, the Lamar, the Burrow. He's probably the leader of the pack for the next tier below those guys.
Yeah. But
he's still, I think, a low-end QB1 for next year.
Okay. All right. I don't just to talk about some guys because we gotta wrap this sucker up. 65% of the time, Kirk Cousins, finishing okay. He did carry 11 games, quality or great. So I mean, he wasn't horrible. But he also wasn't winning you weeks, as we talked about. It is interesting that he did have 5 quality or great performances on the season.
I wonder how many he actually got to 30, though. Were those just mid-20s? Which is still great weeks.
Right,
but
still great weeks. He's one of those quarterbacks that, just like for his NFL team, gets the job done. If you have him, he's always going to be 12 in fantasy football, but, gets you enough fantasy points to win a game. Jared Goff had 9. So he was bad, but some other interesting guys that are further down the list. Rodgers had 10 quality or great games. All of 10 of those games were quality performances. He had 0 great games.
He did not have one game over 23 fantasy points.
Yes. And you also had Derek Carr do the same exact thing as Aaron Rodgers. So those guys are like, I would say, 13, 14, or 15 at the quarterback position. Like, they get you performances, but I would put them in the streaming conversation. Danny Dimes with 9. He did provide some.
Danny Dimes was a good streamer.
Good streamer. He did provide some really big games. 3, 1 in the freaking fantasy championship that burned my soul out.
Yeah.
And then there was one more interesting guy I saw way down the list is Brock Purdy. Played 9 games. He had 6 quality performances, 3 bust performances. Depending on if he plays next year, there could be some interesting situations there.
You think he's going to start over Trey Lance?
I do. I think he's going to start over Trey Lance. That's what they've been saying.
That's
not wild.
That's very interesting. I don't know if I'd like that.
Yeah, I don't know either. But there's your quarterbacks. His audio sound was late.
What about Deshaun Watson? He's a mystery next year, huh?
Yeah. Big fat old mystery. We got consistent wide receivers on the next show. We'll get those more expeditiously, not 48 minutes or 38 minutes or whatever this is. We'll see you later, guys.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.